Hello, welcome to the Flow Artists Podcast. My name is Ran Bowen. Today's episode is a recorded conversation between myself, my co-host Joe Stewart, and Paulie Daniele of Mindful Body and Spirit. As you will soon hear, Paulie is a multifaceted teacher who facilitates a wide range of classes. Boxing, qi-gong, yoga, Pilates and meditation. All of these are in the toolbox of physical and mental disciplines that Paulie loves to share with the world. In this conversation, we learn about Paulie's Italian background and how his personality was shaped by being the youngest of 7 children in the family. We also learn about how Paulie keeps himself energized and inspired through his personal practice, art and other hobbies. And finally, we learn about Paulie's earlier career as a school teacher and how that informs his approach today. It's a cracker of a conversation and Paulie's enthusiasm shines through. Before we continue though, I'd like to just quickly ask that you please subscribe to us on iTunes, Podcaster, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts. It would really help us get the word out there. I'll be back at the end. Stick around for our picks of the week. Perhaps you could tell us a bit of your background and maybe where you grew up, what your childhood was like even.
Sure thing. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Grew up in Preston, so not far from where we are.
Nice and
today.
local.
Yeah, and I still live in Preston as well. So, yeah, grew up around Preston. My parents came from Italy when they were young, and my dad, his family landed like typical Italians in Carlton and in Brunswick, and then my mum grew up in Northcote. So my mum grew up just around the corner from here, actually behind All Nations Park.
Oh, great.
Which actually was numerous other things before it was a park. Yeah.
Wow, it must have been quite interesting seeing this whole area evolve over the years.
Definitely. Yeah, and continuing to evolve, and seeing that firsthand and experiencing it firsthand as well.
Did you have a lot of brothers and sisters growing up?
Yes, I'm actually the youngest of 7, so there's 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and I'm the youngest, so I like to think that I've got a good mix of yin and yang.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so big family, yeah.
And so were you that kind of youngest child cliche of being like the cheeky naughty one?
It was more kind of by the time, and if there's any other parents out there with lots of children could identify with this, I think by the time you've had 7 kids, it's kind of like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There's the energy was a bit more, or the focus, I guess, of my parents was a bit more spread out by the time you've had seven kids. So yeah.
So were you always kind of like a physical, like movement orientated kid growing up?
Not really. Like, my default is definitely not. I'm definitely more mental. I don't know if that's an Aquarian thing but not really. Like, growing up, I played football, but that was more just kind of like,
kind of because you had to.
you're a boy, you've got to go play football.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I'd rather be reading a book or something. So not really. Played football and basketball and stuff like that growing up, but not really as a child, I guess, yeah.
It's actually one of the things I really love about teaching yoga in schools now, that there is an option that's not competitive sport. Because I feel like when I was a kid, like, I wasn't that physical either, because like sport was boring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've maybe always been a bit more of a little bit of a loner kind of, and preferred more solitary pursuits than team games, I guess, which is probably why I run my own business.
Yeah, and also why yoga and meditation makes so much sense.
Correct, yeah, and that connection to self and exploring the self.
And when did you come across your first yoga experience? Was it a class, or?
Yeah, so, I mean, look, to link to the last question, I mean, I wasn't necessarily that physical as a child. I mean, I did grow up a lot. I mean, there was a time when you could ride your bike around and just kind of hang out on the street and kind of come home when it got dark. So did lots of that kind of stuff. And when I was a teenager, I guess, kind of growing up with older brothers in the 90s and the noughties and that, And I guess probably today for a lot of young guys, going to the gym and getting buff is kind of a real thing, you know, and we can kind of deconstruct that another day. But I got into that. I got into bodybuilding, you know, which is really what it was. And after a while, after a few years of doing that, and I think it was while I was doing my first fitness course, doing a Cert 3 in fitness, I realised, hold on, my fitness isn't balanced. You know, I've got strength and I've got, you know, the aesthetics and all this kind of stuff, but I've got no flexibility. I've got no real cardio fitness. It's all superficial, basically.
So were you not feeling good in your body, even though your body was looking really good?
It was, yeah. Like, might have looked healthy, but definitely wasn't really healthy. And I'd probably argue that bodybuilding is probably one of the least healthiest things in the whole kind of fitness or wellness kind of world. And so I remember doing that course and thinking, hold on a second, I'm not balanced. This isn't right. I'm going to the gym 6 days a week, pumping weights. There needs to be something else.
When you were doing that, like, did it feel good as you were doing it?
Look, it did. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the creative aspect of it. And I still enjoy not bodybuilding today, but resistance training or bodyweight movement stuff. And just the creativity that comes with being in your body and just basically inventing exercises, you know, like I guess what Joseph Pilates would have done, you know. So I did enjoy it, but there was also, it was basically a pretty thin veneer of maybe insecurity or something like that. It's like a hyper-masculine way to kind of have an identity, something like that. So I was actually at uni at the time when I first did my first yoga class, and I was studying teaching and doing an arts degree at the same time. So I was pretty intellectual kind of time, and there was a fair bit of like mental stress, I guess, that came along with it. But also at that time in my life, I think I was quite fertile to new ideas and open to new ideas. And I remember one time being at the gym and seeing yoga was on the class timetable and thinking, I need to give that a shot. It'll probably help me with my flexibility, but I'll just give it a shot. And I can remember back to the actual first class I went. It was a really beautiful summer's night. The sky was kind of pinky orangey, just really kind of nice balmy warm breeze, and went to this class, and I think it was me and maybe one other person in the class, and struggled physically, like wasn't open physically because of the years of resistance training and bodybuilding and all of that. But mentally and I guess spiritually, I was kind of like, what is this thing? Like, what's this all about? And just feeling quite high afterwards. And the main thing for me was that it quieted my mind during that time of studying and, you know, science.
Yeah, packing so much in there.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, whoa, hold on, my head's clear. This is great. And then I went back the next week and then kind of kept on going back, and then brought friends along and was kind of like, hey, this is great. And then funnily enough, years later, I ended up teaching at the same studio as my first yoga teacher.
Oh,
like,
nice.
Oh my God, like a full circle kind of thing.
And even the way your memory of that night is so clear, like you must have just been really present after that class and just in the moment.
I think so, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that was kind of where it all started. And I remember like borrowing a couple of books from the teacher. I was kind of like, I wanted to know more. Probably studying, you know, doing a humanities degree, and was kind of interested in philosophy and things like that. I was like, what is this yoga thing? What's it all about? And I remember, reading a book and kind of grasping some stuff. And I remember just reading one particular book, can't remember the name, but it was just about the breath. And I just had this insight where it was like, you can do anything in life as long as you're conscious of your breath, or as long as you're breathing, you can do whatever you want, whatever you set your heart to.
It really seems like it was this link between your physical practice, which is purely physical and purely aesthetic, and your intellectual practice, which was like at university learning and philosophy, and then like yoga is where that really comes together.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think, the human aspect of it, you know, I was teaching, and after my teaching course, I did travel for a while, and it was kind of, yoga is an intersection between all of that kind of stuff. Being a good human being, basically, living a good life. To me, that's what it is really all about. And that doesn't necessarily mean getting onto a yoga mat.
No. I mean, I think the ideal is when your yoga is coming off your yoga mat with you and out into your life.
Correct.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what it was like starting out teaching? Because I know my school classes are my most intellectually challenging but rewarding yoga classes.
Yeah. I look for me, I really struggled because I empathised too much with the students, and I wasn't really that much older than a lot of the students. Like they might, I might have been 23 or 24 or something like that, and the students were like 17 or 18, and it was kind of like there's not really, and I almost. At that period, maybe I didn't have the maturity or something like that, but I identified more with the students, which was maybe what originally set me on the path of becoming a teacher to begin with, was being at school and thinking, hey, I could do that job, you know? And I did struggle. I struggled with being in the education system, and I learnt very early on that if I was going to stay in that system, I probably wouldn't be happy, and I probably wouldn't really be living out my purpose.
Like what drew you to teaching wasn't actually what you spent a lot of your time doing.
Yeah. Like I love teaching, but unfortunately there's too much politics and bureaucracy and just the weight of the system. And I could just see that if I was going to go down that path, it was also a lifestyle factor, I think. I think I value freedom and independence, and I think in that system I was struggling to put that together.
How good that you discovered yoga teaching.
Yeah.
You want to take us through the long list that I've seen on your website of all the different movement styles that you've studied, and maybe share a little bit about what you've got out of each one?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, basically everything that I offer as part of my business, they're all modalities that I've had direct experience of and they've been beneficial to me. So I almost feel like I won't teach something unless I really truly believe in it.
Oh, totally. What's the point?
Yeah, so for me, there's a whole range of things. I've got the fitness related stuff. I've got yoga and the Pilates as well, and they're all kind of mutually beneficial. I feel. Now I've also started teaching qi-gong. For those that don't know, it's quite a similar practice. It's called like the grandfather of Tai Chi. So it's like a simple, gentle form of movement to cultivate your life force. What else is in there? And then also
there's
more
boxing, right?
Yeah, also boxing. Yeah, boxing, functional movement stuff. So things like with kettlebells and body weight training, and also the more meditative kinds of things as well, and things that maybe are more related to energy healing and
there's Reiki in the mix.
Yeah, Reiki. Yeah. And Reiki, it should be said, isn't just a hands-on healing modality. It's actually its own system. Like yoga is its own system of let's say enlightenment, of living, of being in tune with your intuition. It's its own kind of path as well.
Would you like to tell us a bit about what your Reiki training was like? Because everyone I know who's done it has got really good things to say about it.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Is it a training? Look, basically Reiki is something that we already have within us. So it is, for want of a better word, your chi or your prana or your life force. And when you go and do a course in Reiki, you learn more or less how to switch that on in yourself and in other people. So it's already an innate ability that we all have, but you get an attunement to that energy. So a person, the Reiki teacher, will attune you to that energy, and then you're perceptive to that energy, and then you're able to activate that and work with that. And it is quite a subtle energy, so it is an energy that you actually work with, but it also very intuitive. So things start to take place in your life that kind of, you'll realise on a day-to-day basis, and that's the energy as well.
That's that little message that energy is flowing well for you.
Yes, correct.
Teaching a variety of things works for me as well. I'm wondering how you navigate the change in headspace from maybe leading a Reiki session or a meditation to going to teach a boxing class or a functional fitness class.
Yeah, look, it is interesting. Some days can be quite varied, and on the whole, because they're things that are they've become second nature to me. So look, I've basically gotten to the point where it's all movement. It's all movement. I'm pretty hesitant to say, this is yoga, let's stick it in that box. This is Pilates. For me, it's all physical movement within the body, whether that's boxing or whether that's doing a yoga class. So the headspace wise, in terms of the day-to-day, look, it keeps it interesting. It has taken me a while to kind of fine-tune that. And it can be a bit different energetically from going from one class to another class. These days I probably only do more real high energy things like boxing or fitness stuff more on a one-to-one or small group. I've found that teaching maybe a class of 30 or 40 people a boxing class, my energy level isn't really suitable for that these days. Like
it'd be so loud.
Yeah, like I could still turn it on, and also you can have an identity crisis. Like if you're working in a particular gym and you're known as the yoga and the Pilates guy, when you take the boxing class, it's kind of, people don't kind of buy it.
Oh, people don't go to that class.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, but he's the yoga and the Pilates dude. And then if the spin instructor takes it, who's rah, 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 it's kind of like a natural fit.
Yeah.
So I still use those modalities, but if it's essential for the clients, but less so on a large group basis.
Yeah. And are you a teacher that pre-plans their sessions or a go with the flow teacher?
Very much go with the flow. Yeah. Usually for the main classes that I teach would be yoga and Pilates. So for a week, I'll have kind of a theme.
Yeah, theme of the week works for me as well.
Yeah, and the thing is though, it's really funny. When I first kind of started teaching, it was very clearly kind of like, all right, this is the yoga class, this is the Pilates class. But now the two, it's kind of, well, all right, we're doing back bends in the yoga class, we're doing spinal extension in the Pilates class. It's more or less similar, very similar things. So that's kind of how I operate. I'm very much an instructor who's at the front of the room because I need to have a kinesthetic experience myself. I'm very much informed by that in terms, especially with sequencing. All right, we're doing child's pose and then where are we going to move from here? All right, let's thread the needle. That kind of thing, feeling through. So I do that, and look, because I'm teaching to a broad range of demographics, like in one week, I could be teaching a seniors class. So I'm teaching one thing for the seniors. Then maybe later that day, I'm teaching a corporate class. And then maybe later that afternoon, I'm teaching, I don't know, let's say year 10 boys. So you need to be flexible and dynamic and just kind of feel into your situation. And that's really the mindfulness aspect of it. You know, you could come in with a pre-planned script, but you've really just got to work with what's happening around you, you know?
I think that's the part of it that's really fun.
I believe
and when
so.
You're like just riding that wave of energy from the group, that's when you feel amazing afterwards and you're like really in tune with everyone there.
Definitely. And my natural tendency is not to plan things, and it's just to kind of more or less feel into it while I'm there. I won't say make it up on the spot, because it's not necessarily that, but it is going with the experience that's unfolding at that time.
And also, like, you have a history of movement exercises and sequences to draw from, it's not like you're just making it up on the spot, even if you haven't planned it out beforehand.
Yes, and the big thing is, I was thinking about this on while I was riding my bike here, is I need to go with how I'm feeling at that time. And that's why now I think with my schedule, I kind of no longer really take on a class that's not suitable or suitable to that time of the day for me or something like that. So say something I may have done in the past would be like a hot vinyasa class. These days I'm probably less reluctant to take on a class like that because it means I'm a bit too stuck to sticking with what that class is, as opposed to what the potential of what could happen
you're
at
not really
that
playing
time.
to your strengths.
Yeah, or where my head's at, or where my body's at, and rolling with that.
I find, for me personally, things flow better in class if I've had a really good dose of my own practice first. How do you fit practice for those different disciplines into your week?
Yeah. Well, look, I've started to look at everything as practice. Life is practice, you know. I sprinkle little rituals and practices throughout the whole day. And that's from across the entirety of things that I do. And I'll wake up in the morning and there's a little ritual that I'll have in the morning that I do when I wake up to greet the day. And
would you mind sharing?
Yeah, so it's basically my practices now have become an amalgamation of yoga stuff, qi-gong stuff, and Reiki related stuff. So for example, I would wake up in the morning, open the blinds, not do a full sun salutation, because I did try that and I thought, no, this isn't sustainable to do every single morning for me. So what I would do, the first thing that I would do is I would wake up and I would do a forward bend, and then as I stand up, bring my arms over the head and then chant Om. because that's the mantra that I've been given. So I'll work with that. And then another thing that I'll do after that is it's a bit of a qi-gong technique, which is similar to dry brushing. So you basically rub your hands together and then wash over your body, just to really bring me into my body. And then the third thing that I do is what's called in qi-gong, and even in Reiki, it's a similar practice of, they call it connecting the three treasures, or the three haras, or the three dantian. So in the traditional Chinese system and in the Japanese system in Reiki, there's three chakras. So your navel, your heart, and then your third eye, or your head. So I'll just connect with each of those, have a breath at each one, and then I know I'm ready to start my day. And then during the day, before I teach, I'll do more or less a variation of that throughout the day. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you do anything else to warm up physically, or is that enough?
No, in the morning, that's usually enough. I have tried different things over the years, but that usually seems to be enough. And then I will meditate most days. And that's pretty simple breath-based meditation, or just chanting Om, or mentally repeating Om, and a few other different pretty simple meditation practices that seem to work for me.
Are there other self-care practices that don't happen every day but are a really important part of your regime?
Yeah, definitely. I think going away camping and getting out of the city is really important. And I mean, look, with my job, I'm running a mobile business, so I can be here, there and everywhere in 1 week, and there's nothing better than getting away from the city and going to the bush or going to the beach or something like that, and just getting away and just chilling out. So that's a big one. What else? I quite like tea. I stopped drinking coffee about a year ago, and I've just
good for you.
discovered a whole abundance of teas. So tea is really good. What else?
Do you do much massage or foam rolling?
I find shiatsu is quite good. I get shiatsu quite regularly. Foam rolling, yeah, I'll regularly foam roll, and even I go to the chiropractor at least once a month. Another big thing that I do is just hanging off monkey bars, just to lengthen the spine out. That's a real little treat.
And your shoulders, yeah.
And the shoulders. That, and I'll also do things like might get a Reiki treatment myself, or work with another kind of subtle energy. Another one that I've worked with a few times is called Palawa, which
I've never heard of that.
means a radical shift of consciousness. So that's a good modality to turn to when you feel like you're a bit foggy and you just need a bit of a shift. And then that's a good kind of self-care thing. What else? Kinesiology, I find, is quite helpful.
Do you go to a kinesiologist that's more energetic, or one of the more biomechanical ones? Because they can be quite varied, right?
Yeah, probably more energetic. It's a range of things. I mean, you can even be working with things like affirmations in a session. And
sound as well. Sometimes,
yeah, sounds like that. They get the tuning fork out. But it all depends on what I'm kind of in the mood for. You know, sometimes just going for a walk is really healing.
A mindful walk.
Yeah. Or just listening to a podcast as you're going for a walk is really good. Yeah.
How about food and eating wise?
Yes, I've recently made the transition to a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Which is good, but which has been an interesting experience and is a continually interesting experience. And that's, I won't say it's constant work, but you
need to eat a lot more food.
Yeah, you need to, and you just need to, and you also need to be quite flexible with things. And I've found that unless you're going to kind of lock yourself away in the cupboard, you need to be quite realistic about that, you know. And
there's definitely like a level. I think if you aim for ultimate purity in terms of what you eat, you end up in all these situations where there's nothing on the menu for you, and that's not always the best choice.
Yeah, and especially if you're travelling and maybe you're getting out of. I mean, go 20 kilometres out of the city, and the vegan options are pretty limited. So you have to be prepared. Let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always snacks in your bag.
Yeah, so...
Do you have a favourite go-to snack to kind of top up between classes?
I'm pretty big on nuts.
Yeah.
I have a wide range of nuts every day, and vegan protein shakes, which are pretty good. And yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, we are blessed in Melbourne. You can have a pretty inexpensive, healthy vegan meal. You know, I do eat lunch out most days.
Oh, it's one of the treats of being a yoga teacher. Yeah. You're in a different spot every day for lunch.
Right, yeah. And you discover a whole new world of things that are out there. So yeah,
I think you got to build these little treats into your day.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Definitely.
And your intermittent fasting as well.
Yeah. So I aim to fast on a good week, I'll aim to fast like on a Monday and a Friday. So then it's kind of a bit of a buffer for the weekend. It's not every single week, but that's also been a really interesting practice as well. That's definitely one of kind of mental discipline. The ironic thing is when you fast, you actually have more energy. And I've had some really interesting times teaching, especially a yoga class, where I've been fasting during the day and just amazing thing. I'm just downloading amazing things from the cosmos. It's like, whoa, where's this coming from?
Because it is a traditional yogic practice as well.
Yeah. So, and a good friend of mine got me onto that, and I've since been playing around with it, and I've found, things that are helpful for me is like maybe having a green smoothie throughout the day and herbal teas to kind of keep me going, or just, a bit of soda water, things like that are really helpful. And I find with the fasting, you need to be busy but not too busy, because if you're just sitting there at home, it's too easy to say, oh, maybe I'll fast tomorrow. Let's have that coconut yogurt,
Yeah, I've actually wondered about it teaching, because even if I, say, have missed a meal and then teach a class, often I've just really not felt good in that class. So I've thought, it would be a nightmare. Like, how would you get through that day of teaching and not just feel dizzy and have trouble making sentences? But often it really works for you.
It's probably I would say it's probably more enjoyable than you've had too big of a meal before you go to teach a Pilates class. You're doing core exercises.
Yes.
It's like, shouldn't have had that curry. Yeah, I mean, look, it can be a little bit dizzying at times, and you need... but I guess what I'm doing in the day-to-day can be quite grounding anyway, so that's I guess, say, for example, if you have that moment where you're getting a bit... caught up in your head, and then you're doing something physical that's there to keep you grounded and to allay the side effects of it. Yeah. But also just sitting with whatever happens when you're doing a practice like that, and seeing it as a practice as well.
I guess like setting an intention, planning your day like that is quite different than not having time for lunch.
Yeah, you need to be prepared. And the other thing is, when you fast, because you're not eating that day, that's completely off the agenda. We spend so much brain power worrying about what are we going to eat. What are we?
Definitely,
what am I
especially when you add the vegan on top of that.
Yeah,
you have to be that much
so
more
it's just
prepared.
kind of like, well, today you're not having lunch, So what I normally do is I'll do a 24-hour fast. So maybe have dinner, Thursday night, and then not eat until dinner time Friday night, or something along those lines. And look, there are times when your body just kind of says, "Look, we need to eat now." And there's even been times where it's been mentally, you're like, no, I'm fine, and your body's like, give me something to eat. And it's been like, I could have a hot dog right now, like just whatever, give me anything. I need
something I never usually want to put in my mouth.
Exactly. It's all an interesting process. Yeah.
I see that you do a lot of formal training. I'm wondering what you do, whether that is what you turn to when you feel like you need some more inspiration in your own teaching, or if you've got any other go-tos when you just need that little inspiration boost.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's often getting away from... I get a lot of inspiration from removing myself from my day-to-day situation and actually getting away from yoga and Pilates. And
fresh perspective.
Yeah, just going for a swim or something like that, and then inspiration will hit. Formal training, I guess for me now, because I'm kind of operating more as a business, the formal training is kind of what services would I like to maybe add to my business, and they're usually things that, close to my heart or very close to my heart, or becoming, a part of my day-to-day life.
I think most teachers have got a little bit of a wish list of, if I had like unlimited time and money, I'd do this training, I'd learn with that teacher. Have you got any that you kind of are your dream
I would
teachers?
probably say that life's the greatest teacher, and I would probably want to travel if I had, say an unlimited amount of money. I mean, you can just learn so much from just... an old lady at the bus stop or something like that, You
don't need unlimited money to learn from an old lady at the bus stop.
Yeah. I mean, look, the other thing is, I guess I completed, 5 years of formal study at university, so I'm a little bit kind of...
Done that.
And possibly even a little bit disillusioned with what's become of, I guess, the commodification of the whole education industry. So... it would be more informal stuff these days, I think, unless it's really something where it's like, no, I need to go and learn that thing, so then I'm able to teach it and offer it and share it with other people.
Are there any key teachers who do really shape what you teach today?
I think at the moment my qi-gong teacher is really quite inspiring for me. Cole Betts from
how
Pursuit of
sexist
Wellness.
of me, assuming he was a man.
Yeah, who's actually most of my teachers have been female, which is probably not too unusual in the wellness world. But yeah, I'm finding just that she really holds space really well, and she's able to really facilitate a mindful and down-to-earth and fun practice. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment. Other key teachers, and at the moment I've recently got into another movement modality called ZUU, Z-U-U, and a good friend of mine, David Mummery, he's a ZUU coach or instructor, and that's really been quite good. It's based on animal movements and primal movements, and we do a session bright and early on a Saturday morning, and it's probably the most hardcore thing that I do in terms of my own practice, but it's the one thing that gets me out of bed the easiest, which is quite interesting. I think sets the bar quite high, and it gives you something to aim for, and then that's quite an inspiring thing as well.
And it's really inspiring as well to have that feeling of kind of transcending that sleepy Saturday morning and really being in your body and kind of extending yourself.
Yeah, and I guess for me, yoga, hatha yoga or yoga asanas is not really about that for me. For me, it's more about the mental side of it. So I like to maybe push myself in other areas, in other modalities. For me, yoga is more about calming down, chilling out. Whereas if I want to rev up and do something that's a bit more hardcore, I'll do that, or I'll go to the gym and put my headphones in and put some underground techno on and just, hit the boxing bag, those kinds of things. But for me, kind of, I guess, things like yoga, it's not really the space for that for me personally.
Do you feel at all that some of these different movement modalities, learning them, do you think they've influenced your yoga teaching at all?
Definitely, yeah, for sure. I mean, look, because these days I put everything under the umbrella of movement. There's things now that everything's influenced by each other, like Joseph Pilates studied yoga, and then now there's even, you look at yin, or even some poses, I think there's a yin pose, the seal, which was the swan from Pilates, and it's kind of like this feedback loop, and I find that it's all interrelated. So even if I'm doing ZUU stuff, even some of that borrows heavily from yoga. So for example, doing a real deep squat, in a ZUU class you do that as a dynamic movement, or you do what's more or less a vinyasa. It's not called that, but I'm able to bring things. I guess for me, I'm really interested in bringing other things into yoga. I'm probably more interested in the broad scope of movement practices as opposed to depth of yoga practice, perhaps. And most things fit quite easily. It's pretty easy to insert qi-gong movements into a yoga class, or Pilates movements or yoga movements into a Pilates class. So nowadays, there's sometimes when I'm teaching, and depending on the class, it's kind of like, all right, we started off doing yoga, and then now we're doing this, which is really probably Pilates, but that's qi-gong, and you just mentioned that thing, which actually comes from Reiki, and then it's all just kind of, I guess, who you are, what you embody is what you end up teaching, I think. And I think when you're in that creative flow, it's kind of like, well, why wouldn't we do this movement now? This person's got, kyphosis and rounded shoulders. Why wouldn't we get them doing, a Superman or something like that? Yeah, I guess it's about what people need, really, and it comes back to what you're teaching. I think it's who's right in front of me right now, what do they need, what do I have in my head that can help them. And there's sometimes when I'm doing a PT session, it's kind of like, let's just do Pilates stuff, because these people, their posture's really out, let's do that.
Yeah, it's like we need to do that before we even put in some more strength stuff, so they've got that foundation.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like, as long as people are moving, like I'm not too much of a purist anyway. It's like, as long as people are moving, they're actually doing something. Let's just go with it. Yeah.
I think as well, as a teacher, it's actually a lot kinder on your own body to be teaching a variety of movement styles. You're better able to avoid those kind of overuse injuries.
Yeah. I learned that pretty early on in the piece. Say for example, you're teaching a Pilates class and you're targeting glutes that week. And then by the third class, you can't even physically do that sequence of movements because your glutes are too tight.
And because Pilates is so specific as well.
Yeah. But in saying that, I think that's why I guess if you're teaching different modalities, so you might be doing the strengthening stuff more in a Pilates session, but then you're teaching a really gentle, hatha class where you're stretching the whole time and you're able to, untie those knots in your own body. So I think that's part of the lived experience of it, teaching. Even some days where I might teach, maybe there's, a day where I've taught 4 yoga classes. By the end of that class, it's kind of like, I'm a little bit over this. My body's telling me, we need to do something a little bit different. And your body does tell you. I remember one time when I was teaching a lot of classes, like, somewhere up to 20 or something like that. And I just remember having like a thumb issue, a niggling thing, and then like a wrist, and then like an elbow thing. And it was just my body's way of saying, just back off.
Yeah, too much.
Too much, yeah.
I don't know if you get this as well, but when I've been teaching too many classes, I get really sick of the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, I'm very... I try not to talk a lot. I try not to talk too much whenever I'm teaching. I'll definitely... There's nothing worse than going to a class yourself and the teacher's just banging on and on and on and on. And that's maybe a bit of a trap you fall into earlier on because you're kind of like,
I've got to tell them everything.
Yeah. And then after a while, you're just like, no. And then you realise your own voice. You're just like... But that's good because then you come up with more creative ways to say things and you're not repeating the same thing over and over and over, which is good. So, for example, if you're doing a simple movement like, little circles with your wrists or something like that, and then you're going through each joint, instead of always saying, okay, let's go that way, and then back the other way. And then after you get down to your knees, it's kind of like, okay, let's rotate to the left and then to the right. And then you've got to just work out ways to convey the same information, but without basically sounding like a broken record.
I think you get better as well at scanning a room and seeing which cues are actually needed.
Yes.
Rather than just saying the same ones every time you teach that pose.
And I think the more you look at your students and the people that are right in front of you, the more you realise you don't even need to say half the stuff. You don't even need to say. It's really unless maybe there's new people in the room or... it's actually a bit of a waste of energy.
So another aspect of teaching yoga, which people often aren't aware of unless they do it themselves, is all of the behind-the-scenes admin, promotion, business stuff.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for other teachers? Any things that have really worked for you navigating all of that?
Yeah, look, I guess for me, the admin is a big part of what goes on behind the scenes of everything. I think for me, I've gotten to a point now where I basically work Monday to Friday and then after that, that's it. Like the weekend, I don't want to know about it. I just switch off from everything.
Oh, it's so good you've got it worked out like that.
Yeah, and the reason why I've got it worked out is because I was working 7 days. And I did kind of think, hey, this is a great lifestyle and I'm getting paid to do my dream job, which I am and which we are. But it was kind of like, but this isn't really that helpful if you're always, on your phone, answering emails on the weekend and that kind of thing. So for me, I've basically worked out how to because it's such an unconventional job with unconventional hours, I've slowly over time begun to pack it down so it is more like a conventional 9-to-5 job where it is kind of Monday to Friday, that's it. After that, I don't want to know about it.
And also because you have energy reserves that you can teach 5 classes in a day, so you can condense your teaching schedule a bit more.
That's right. And for me, it's kind of like, well, when I'm working during the week, I'm working, that's my workload. And then on the weekend, it's time to just relax and disconnect from all of it. And for me, that's the way that I've found balance. Do
you set aside a day each week for admin, or do you just put it in the spaces?
Usually, like, look, some days you have big chunks and you might have, 3 or 4 hours up your sleeve or something like that. And so I just do things whenever I can do them during the week. Sometimes there are times on the weekend where you end up doing things. You might need to have a meeting with someone or you might, need to have a phone conversation and you can't avoid that. But on the whole, I try and just stack my days up as much as possible as opposed to teaching 7 days a week, teaching down to 4 days or so like that, and then maybe the Friday's an admin day if possible, and then doing stuff during the week whenever possible. And look, to be honest, credit to Apple, I basically run a business off of an iPhone, like you can pretty much do stuff
Yeah, you can
on
do
the
that from
go.
anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if we're looking at things like social media, I'd rather just generate organic content when I'm doing something and just kind of do it that day. I'm working, I'm in work mode, I've got my uniform on, go, get it done, that post is done, and then you're kind of quiet on the weekend and you don't have to think about it.
And also social media is a lot more fun if you're actually inspired about the thing that you're posting.
Correct.
Rather than going, oh, Friday social media day,
Yes.
what am I going to post about?
Yeah, and I know some people kind of plan their content and stuff. For me, that's not really how I operate. It'd have to be a bit more of okay, I've just taught this amazing class, maybe I'm at a cafe, maybe I might post something about my day, and that's kind of, that's it. Or
have you got any, I don't know if you spend much time looking at social media, but have you got any online inspiration that you like to dip into through the day, or is that not really your thing?
No, probably not. I guess my own kind of Instagram account, it's very much wellness related. To be perfectly honest, I might take a peek at some of my competitors for inspiration there and just see what other people are doing, and just kind of, I could say competitive, but maybe another way.
You look within your community.
Yes. Yeah, I look within my community to see maybe what other people are doing, or just how people are kind of going about promoting, similar things to what I'm doing.
Do you tend to play music while you teach? And if so, any current musical inspirations that get you going?
Yeah, usually I do. Like I was actually looking at that last night, just going through some playlists and kind of retuning stuff. I guess I play a range of stuff depending on the class. I will choose a playlist to kind of set the tone or the emotion. Usually what I do is, if I've got a kind of theme or a class for the week, the playlist kind of helps that. And it will even to the point, and this is probably from working in the fitness industry where you have things like Body Pump where they're actually choreographed to the music, I'll design a playlist around that. So, you might start off really quiet with some ambient kind of music, or something really instrumental if you're starting off with some meditation, and then maybe slowly build it up. It always depends on the demographic as well. Like, I'm not going to be really playing electronica to, my seniors class. Sometimes I might. I try and play stuff that's not too invasive. I do quite like a bit of classical. Max Richter, who did it was an 8-hour album called Sleep.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I have been using some stuff from that, which
that
has
sounds
been
like it'd be
quite
great for a
helpful.
yin type
Perfect
class.
for a yin type class, yeah. So that's really quite good. And then sometimes I find it's really good not to play any music and just go with the silence and just be comfortable to sit in that. And I think because usually I will play music, it's quite nice when I don't play music. And every now and then, your Bluetooth speaker dies, and it's kind of like, great, no music.
Yeah. Universe has made that decision for me.
And that creates more opportunities for mindfulness as well, because then you can actually say, well, let's listen to the birds chirping outside, let's listen to the rain.
It's a really nice thing about teaching outside as well. No music, just sounds of nature.
Yes, that's exactly right, yeah. When I first started doing stuff outdoors, I would maybe bring music along, but now it's just like, no, that you've got everything you need right there.
That reminds me of the time we were at Bali Spirit Festival, and one of the teachers, he had this whole playlist worked out, and he actually had sort of backup yoga.
He had backup yoginis.
Wow.
Babes in little bra tops and little shorts.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then as the music just died just moments before he's supposed to go on,
and the festival staff were hilarious. Like, he was kind of having a fit about it, and they were just completely unruffled because he was like, when's my music going to come back on? And they're like,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's an interesting environment to teach in the festival.
So someone from the audience sort of volunteered to go and get his drum, and so ran off, came back with this amazing drum and a ridiculous hat, and just drummed the whole...
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
That's great.
So it was a happy ending.
Yeah. I think you can be too married to things like music and playlists, and it can almost even detract from what you're actually doing.
think it's a little bit like the same trap as having a really intricately planned class. When something goes awry and you're not kind of used to responding to what's actually happening in that moment, and when your plan's gone out the window, it can be really hard to kind of keep things on track.
Exactly right. Yeah, true. And the opposite of that is true when you haven't planned enough and you're trying to maybe intuit your way into something and it might not be happening, and it's kind of like, oh, let's go to Child's Post. That's right, yeah.
Have you got any advice for people who might be just starting out in their teaching?
Yeah, I guess listening to a great podcast like this is
probably a
good resource. I guess wherever possible, talking to, like, say, for example, if you're maybe doing a teacher training course and, you go and do a regular practice, maybe talking to your regular teacher and just maybe getting a bit of insight and talking to them about, the lived experience of embarking on this, whether you want to do it as a full-time career or whether it's going to be a kind of passion project away from your full-time job. I guess talking to people, look, a big part of it is you've just got to really go out there and have a crack, really. I mean, that's my motto in life, the great Australian have a go, you mug, because there's a lot of things that might be lessons that only you can learn, and some mistakes that are really going to shape you as a teacher. And I think that can make you quite resilient, and it can also, sometimes you need to go down a particular path to realise, hey, maybe this street's not for me. I definitely went there with doing festival workshops. I kind of thought, this is going to be great, and this will be a good way to kind of boost my business and raise my profile. And for me, it was a bit of a dead end. It was a great experience, but it was kind of like, this isn't really what I need to be doing in my life at the moment, and these aren't really the people that I need to be of service to at the time. And I think going out there and learning those things and having that experiential knowledge and then reflecting on that is a great way to grow as a teacher.
And I guess even though teaching at festivals isn't what you want to do, that practice of teaching to a really large group in a noisy environment where there's a lot of other things going on around, like that ability to hold space will help you teaching in other places.
Yeah. And look, that was great fun. I mean, I come to think of it now, and it is quite fun, that kind of environment. And you're right. And I guess the main thing is, and for me, having done a teaching degree, your skills are portable. You take them with you wherever you go into whatever area of life you move into.
Is there anything that you feel like you might have learnt in your teaching degree that isn't necessarily covered in most yoga teacher trainings that's really helped you?
Yeah, I think possibly the whole idea maybe of reflective practice and constantly kind of inquiring into your own teaching on the spot, and then when you leave. So, as you're teaching, being kind of, I guess, almost metacognitive of what you're teaching, how you're teaching, and then reflecting on that, and then learning from that and growing from that. Probably those kinds of things. Do
you write a diary about any of that, or is it
more
just something
I don't.
You think
it's
about?
More just I'll think about it. It might come up in meditation. Probably things of that nature. And I guess probably things like catering to people's different learning styles or their different needs or their abilities, and I guess really catering for a real breadth of demographic.
Just to dip into the different learning styles in case people haven't encountered that. So would that be things like demonstrating something for a visual learner?
Yeah, correct. So use it. So I guess, I mean, the typical breakdown is usually, people might be more dominant visually, or they might be more kinesthetic, or they might be more auditory, and also having an awareness of your own dominant style. So for me, I'm auditory. I could go to a class and do the whole thing with my eyes closed while the teacher's instructing and get it. Whereas other people, they need to see what the hell is a bridge? What's he banging on about, Whereas other people are more feeling, and we all have a mixture of the different kind of styles or tendencies, but just being really aware of those kinds of things and not just pitching it to one particular person or one particular ideal student.
And so maybe say if someone's not getting your instructions, having that thought of, I might just need to show them in their own body, or I might need to demonstrate this right next to them.
Yeah, and there's a good concept, I remember, it was scaffolding for people. So say, for example, if you were teaching an English class and you need a student to write an essay, but instead of just giving them the question and saying, write the essay, you give them guiding questions. And it's about working from where people are actually at, where are they actually from. Say, for example, if you cover a class, and it's kind of like, what do you actually regularly do in this class? We're doing a pretty strong vinyasa flow. All right, let's work with that then. If that's what everyone's kind of comfortable with, we'll go from there, as opposed to, I'm the teacher, I'm putting this on you. And I guess it's about facilitating, not even seeing yourself so much as a teacher. It's like, we're in a learning environment, I'm facilitating it, and, I could be learning so much from the student, seeing yourself as the student and the student as the teacher, and learning from the student. I find that that's really, really helpful.
I find you get a lot of that as well in your like one-on-one or one-on-three really small group classes, where you've got that really close relationship with someone, and often working with something specific in their body if they're healing an injury. Like, you learn so much at the end of that process, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. And just being able to read where people are at and their situation. I think you alluded to it in an earlier episode of, you might be doing a private session with someone, but they might just want to be talking about their day at work. So you just got to kind of go, all right, let's just pause the sequence. He's telling me about what happened in his day. Let's just run with that. And then that actually adds to the experience of what you're teaching anyway. And I think that whole thing of getting to know people is really fundamental when you're teaching or running a business or operating in this whole sphere. It's a human-centered, heart-centered interaction.
Definitely.
Say someone walks in off the street and they've never been to one of your classes before. What is the one thing that you'd like them to take away from that class, from your teachings?
That's a great question. I guess the main message that I like to get across is to listen to your own body, and especially if you're going into that environment. Possibly even if you were a male specimen, and you might think, I'm doing yoga, and you have a competitive mindset, and you're thinking, I need to be doing what the person next to me is, or can I actually rest, or do I just need to keep powering through? Really, I think listening to your body, it sounds so cliche, but actually listening to your body and knowing that you're in a space where if you need to rest, you can rest. Or if you want to really smash out those vinyasas, you can go for it if you want, if that's what you really want. So I think just being in tune with your body, I think that would probably be one of the biggest messages, I think. Yeah.
That's all the questions we have for now. Thanks very much, Paulie. That was great. So now it's time for Pick of the Week, and my Pick of the Week is a book named God, A Human History by Reza Aslan, and he is a scholar of religion, and he also hosted a TV series on CNN called Believer, and he's got some great stuff there, so I urge you to check it out, and I'll leave a link in the show notes.
My pick of the week is an album that I stumbled upon. J Boogie's Dubtronic Science is the group, and the album's called Soul Vibrations. It actually came out in 2008, and I was looking on iTunes for another album called Soul Vibrations, but J Boogie's Dubtronic Science was such a tantalising proposition that I just started playing it, and I bought it, and it's kind of my current jam. I've been really enjoying listening to it.
That's great.
Yeah, my pick of the week would be one of the most simplest things that any of us can do, especially those of us living in the city, is to take your shoes off and put your feet on the earth, whether that's on the grass or whatever little patch of land you've got around you, and just ground your body into the earth. Can take a few breaths while you're doing that, and just let go of some old energy and take some new energy into your body. That would be my pick of the week.
Nice.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So there you have it, another great conversation with an inspiring teacher. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to us at podcast.flowartist.com or email us at podcast@flowartist.com. We're Flow Artist Podcast on Facebook or at Flow Artist on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. The theme song in this podcast is Baby Robots by Go Soul and used with much appreciated permission. Do yourself a favor and get his music from gosoul.bandcamp.com. Thanks again. Big, big love.